I'll have done what society wants me to do. I didn't really believe in, generalized anxiety, or even though I cry every single night.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Cosmic Chats. We have the beautiful Sarah Fatemi, who is a stand-up comedian. She was raised in Ohio with immigrant parents from Iran, but shares today how even though she had much privilege growing up, finding out who she really was and expressing herself different to her parents, and how it changed her trajectory of her life, starting to live in her own truth. So how would you describe the taste of a banana to someone who's never eaten one?
It's sweet, but not intoxicating.
Ooh, do you ever put your bananas in vodka?
No, but that sounds like a great idea. You know what's weird? I like bananas on their own, but I don't like sweets that have bananas. Like, I think it's so gross. So my parents are from Iran, and in Iran, almost all cakes and all pastries have some scent or form of banana in them. And I think it's because the war between Iran and Iraq, bananas were considered a luxury because they were scarce because of, the imports and stuff like that. And so now it's seen as a luxury, but I don't know. I don't like the taste of it in cake. I'm not a big fruit in sweets person. If it's going to be dessert, it may as well be chocolate. But a banana itself, it's pretty damn good. And it's good for when you're hungover. Or excuse me, good for when you're feeling sick. Sorry.
So when did you have your first existential life crisis as a child?
Well, I guess it would be when I wouldn't say it was when I was a child as much as it was, well, I would say 14 was a really hard age for me, but I think existentially it was when I was 21 actually, because as a kid growing up, I always knew I wanted to move out to Hollywood and pursue acting and stand up and,
And where did you grow up?
Ohio, a small city in Ohio called Toledo. And I didn't feel like I really got along I got along with, friends and stuff, but I was not, dating. I wasn't really attractive to a lot of guys, I guess. I don't know. It was like one of the few brown families in such a white area. And most of the people just they want to like get married young, have kids young, which is great if that's what you want. But I never felt like I could connect on that level.
And why do you think that was?
Well, it's just a different cultural lifestyle. I mean, I'm very privileged to have been able to, travel the world with my family and be exposed to so many different ideas and different ways of life. And
was that because of your family's jobs?
Well, my dad is a professor. He often travels and is the keynote speaker at a lot of conferences. And yeah, so I would often go with him. But I just know as far as like in a personal life, I never really was in a rush to get married and have kids because mainly there was also nobody who wanted to do that with me, which is probably a blessing in that sense. But
did you have any family pressures for that?
No, not I know that's weird, right? Well, no, Persians in the US anyway aren't like, because I was only 21. My dad was all about finish your education, grad school, get a job. Then, as of now, not yet, but I'm sure it's going to come soon. But, no, I mean, I'm not really, I've always been attracted to the glitz and the glam and the art. I love art. I'm a creative. And so
now, your father was an academic in which field?
Mechanical engineering.
So completely the opposite then.
Oh, yeah. And he wanted to push me, not push, but he really, really wanted me to pursue engineering. He'd always be like, women get paid so much more in engineering because there's less of them. It's also prestigious, also Middle Eastern. And I get it. They're immigrants. They worked very hard to come here. They want us to be secure too. But
did you feel there was a difference with having parents that were immigrants? with your friends?
Yeah, I do.
Not
Because
just culturally, but I mean, because you were dealing with America and middle America.
yeah. Yeah, I grew up during 9/11, and it was just different, I mean, people wouldn't really say anything to my face, but there was always this kind of hush hush about where your ancestors really come from, what religion you grew up in, and just kind of, it was just kind of more of a don't bring it up.
So did you find that you started to feel uncomfortable after 9/11?
Um, a little bit. Yeah, because I go to Iran every year to visit family. And they're religious, they wear the hijab, and really really kind people, but I remember having pictures of my cousins up in my room with them. um and my dad I was like 10 or 11 or something, and my dad comes in and he's like, well, you're inviting your friends into your room from school, and they're going to see them what they're wearing, and they're going to think that the Middle East is all like the Taliban, and oh, we were right, they really do wear, they're all kind of extremists or whatever, so don't put that picture up. And I remember starting to be very like, just be careful about, don't tell anyone you visit Iran, don't have any pictures of you in the hijab, stuff like that. So
And at
and
that
not that my
age, you weren't really on social media then.
you know not at 10, no, but like when I was 14, the MySpace, Facebook. And I mean, in high school, that I wasn't really thinking about that. I was just kind of wondering why that boy didn't like me. And, so that was kind of my focus. Like, okay, I want a boyfriend by the time I'm 17. And you know what I mean? And just because my best friend at the time was also like homecoming, queen, when not queen, but like, she was elected like homecoming representative, and really pretty, and all the boys liked her. And that's when I mean, I knew I didn't look like everybody else. I'm not
Mm.
blonde. I'm not light skinned, well, white. And it was just, I definitely started dealing with some self-esteem issues.
Right.
Uh,
And did you find that sometimes people wanted to be friends with you to get to her?
that's interesting because no, she was just a very social butterfly, very nice. I mean, anybody would befriend her. So she wasn't a hard person to talk to at all. She wasn't like the mean, popular girl or anything like that. And we're still friends to this day. And yeah, so I went to her wedding a few years ago, actually. So yeah, and I was a bridesmaid. And yeah, but in high school, I think I kind of was like, well, they can have their boyfriends, they can, it's fine that I didn't get asked to homecoming or whatever. I'm going to move to LA, and I'm going to see a different life. I'm going to pursue my art, and I'm going to meet such cool people, which has happened.
So did you go to college first?
I did, and that was when it really started. I mean, 18, 19 was okay, but so I went to college in my hometown because my dad was a professor, so that meant free tuition. Again, a massive privilege. At the same time, I was still in my hometown. I was still dealing with, people only thinking whiteness was attractive. This kind of, everyone just kind of wants to get married soon, and
And what was the
not
college you attended?
University of Toledo.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, the first few years were great. I would say my senior year of college, that's when, okay, so here's the thing. So my junior year of college, I became friends with this like group of Middle Eastern, just group of friends. I've always had friends growing up, different people here, there, but this was like a group of guys and girls. And we'd go to the bar, we'd go to the club, we would just sit around till 4 a.m. talking and drinking and laughing. And I started to kind of like, I was always a good student, but I started to forget the after plan. I kind of was just like happy in the moment, which is a great thing, but I completely kind of just, I was like, okay, LA, I'll get there when I get there.
Mm-hmm. So
And
you felt
then
like you lost track.
a little bit, yeah, and that happens to everybody. And then I remember at the summer before my senior year of college, my closest friend in that group of people moved to Canada. And then everyone else kind of, at first I assumed they dispersed, but they just weren't inviting me. And
Oh.
that really hurt me. And I was in a relationship. I had my first boyfriend too around that time, who I was actually not attracted to, but I was like, well, I'm 21. I need a boyfriend. I've never had a boyfriend. People are saying that it's weird, that it's whatever. And, you know, I was unhappy. We just didn't get along. And I was his first girlfriend. And it was just it was like two 12-year-olds in the body of 21-year-olds. I was just unhappy. I gained a bunch of weight. I would cry every night because I was like, well, this is the guy I have to marry because nobody else will like me. Nobody else will ever be attracted to me. This is the first guy that's ever been attracted to me. And my friends, I don't really have friends anymore. And, I guess this is kind of what life is. And so that was a crisis. And I was like, and at the same time, like my dad especially was kind of like, you talk about going to Hollywood, that's impossible. You're ruining your future by thinking about this. This was right before I kind of lost track. And so I just kind of was like bundled up in my own hurt. And that lasted most of like end of 2013 through most of 2014. And then I woke up on the first day of the semester that I was starting graduate school. Okay, so here's the thing. So I finished college, and then of course my immigrant parents were like, you have to go to grad school. So I applied to a couple places, UCLA here, there. I ended up getting back into the University of Toledo. Yeah, tuition not paid. So, I did get a scholarship though.
And how did things change?
So it was kind of cool because it's like I'm an adult. I'm 22. And, I was around people who were not older, but were somewhat more mature. But the thing was that, I had gotten used to just kind of hopping onto every friend group and going out with this person, that person, and just trying to find, I don't want to say purpose, but trying to find a way to feel good again. And of course I was a straight edge kid, no drugs, no alcohol, no sex at the time. Just, and, I remember going into work. It was a part-time job for my assistantship. That was my assistantship, not scholarship, my bad. And I was like, you know what? Nah, I'm gonna move to LA. And so I sat down, I made a list of all the film schools, graduate programs. Yeah, all, in LA, just LA. And I applied, I got my resume together, I got all my materials together, and, I treated it like a part-time job. So 20 hours a week, I was just dedicating to just focusing on that. Parties can wait. Annoying boyfriend can wait. Everyone can wait. And I didn't tell my parents either.
So you didn't tell your parents, and you applied and you got into one of the schools?
I got in end of January. I got into a couple of the Cal States, but the highest ranking one I got into was Loyola Marymount. And my dad was like, well, I don't know about throwing away this MBA program for, this school, that school. He's like, okay, only if you get into USC, UCLA, Chapman, or Loyola Marymount. And I got into Loyola Marymount. And I remember I got that phone call. It was super wintry, snow. I was driving with my boyfriend at the time, who, I was just there to.
This was a different person than the other one?
No, this is the
same one. So you stayed in a relationship even though you still weren't attracted to them.
I was so unhappy because this was someone who was controlling too. He didn't like.
How are they controlling?
He didn't like me wearing revealing clothing or even shorts. I remember I would act in student films because that's kind of how I would spend my free time in undergrad. And, I would play someone's girlfriend. That would piss him off. Yeah, fun fact, when I graduated college, my undergrad was in marketing. I didn't know anybody in the business college, all film students, because that's who I would spend time with, and that's who I would hang out with and do their projects. But also, most of these film students, there were some of them who ended up moving to LA, but a lot of them also still kind of wanted that, you know, early marriage, let's have a kid, let's see what happens.
So that
So
was the
again,
conditioning, even though your parents were very strong on get your education and
yeah,
do that later, you very much felt the peer pressure of your cultural environment of wanting to be validated by being with someone in a
yeah,
relationship, even
yeah,
if you weren't happy.
yeah.
And so they were controlling. Would you say they were abusive?
My parents or
No,
my,
the relationship you were in.
oh, um, somewhat emotionally, yeah. Not
Emotional
physically.
abuse.
Well, and this is something I haven't opened up too much about yet, but also sexually abusive too.
Right.
So,
So things were happening that you weren't really wanting to have happen.
yeah, and um I actually at some point was medicating with alcohol when I was with him because I was just like, I'll let whatever happens happen and I'll be okay with it because I'm drunk.
Right,
And
right. So that was medication to cope with a situation that ultimately was in order to fit in society-wise and culturally.
yeah, if I
Right,
just numb this dissatisfaction, then I'll have done what society wants me to do.
right.
And
And then
this
you'll
is the
be
way life,
validated and you'll be okay.
yeah, yeah.
So when you moved to Los Angeles, what changed for you?
So when I moved out here, the first 2 weeks I was living by myself because my assistantship started 2 weeks before classes started, and it was empty. And but I remember the weather because I mean I visited California before. My grandmother used to live here, so I had had a taste of it, and that was always the goal. I think I decided when I was 11 that that's where I was going to live when I was older. But it changed because I remember I mean I met, you know, my classmates, we were in the grad program, but I remember this sense of freedom, this sense of independence. You know, I first started using Uber, Lyft. Um, I was still with my boyfriend long distance at the time.
And you were how old, sorry, at this time?
I had just turned 23.
So you were 23 and you
Mhm.
started to feel more of who you were naturally?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, I'll be honest, I think I developed a little more slowly than most people. Like when at 23, I felt like an 18-year-old. Like this was the real college experience, you know? You know,
And do you think that's because you were doing what your heart wanted to do all those years?
yeah. Yeah.
And so what gave you the capacity to end that relationship?
So I thought the distance was gonna just kind of drive us apart. And I remember, but right before that happened, I remember I visited my family for the first time 3 months later, for Thanksgiving. And I came back and none of my roommates were home. They were either with their family or whatever. And I remember getting into a fight with my boyfriend on the phone. I remember him dumping me. And even though that's what I wanted, I didn't want that because I was scared I was never going to find anyone else. And I remember my
Mm.
blood sugar was very low at the time too. And I was alone in the house and I remember puking and feeling sick for the next several days and going to the hospital on campus. And they gave me a Klonopin and just I also had this fear of flying at the time, and even though I visit Iran every year, I was like, "Oh my God, like, you know, what if it, you know what I mean? Just
And why was the
raising
Klonopin so significant?
because it made me just feel relaxed. It was a drug.
Mm.
I mean, I was not on antidepressants or anything like that at the time. I mean, I was just very I didn't really believe in, you know, generalized anxiety or I was like, I don't have anxiety. I don't have depression, you know, even though
Mm.
I cry every single night, like I don't, you know, that's not me.
And what do you do now with the anxiety or the depression?
So I'm on a low dose of antidepressants, which
Mm.
really changed my life. I exercise daily when I can. I lift weights and I run on the treadmill. I go hiking with my friends once a week. It's great to get out into nature and the wilderness, and just talk. I try to eat healthy. So I'm not keto, even though I was for a couple years, but generally for me, for my mental health, lower carb is better. If I eat too many carbs, that spirals the anxiety. And I'm not really a fan of like rice and bread and stuff like that anyway. I don't need it to be, I don't like pasta. I don't need it to be part of my daily life. So I'm lucky in that sense. But yeah, those are what I do. And I'm recently looking to CBT therapy, like cognitive behavioral therapy, I think is.
Cognitive behavior, yes, absolutely. So the
Yeah.
cognitive behavior, the brain, it's fascinating. They're still learning more. A lot of this goes into the imprint, and the imprint that we have can be from down the DNA line, right? And then the first 5 years of our upbringing, anything that happens to us when we're younger, the imprint is deeper. And so this is where we have the conscious mind and the subconscious, right? So the conscious mind, we're actively taking actions, right? The subconscious runs all of our behavior. So if we have deep programming within us, often saying, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. It's not going to work because there is deeply programmed how we are to behave. And that came from a pattern to protect us. So the mind is always attempting to protect the body, but we get into loops. And when we get older and we have more knowledge and wisdom, and yet sometimes we're still, why are we responding that way? And one of the advantages we have with many practices, nature is beautiful to get grounded. So not only the ions being outside, Los Angeles, it's pretty hard to breathe. The air is not great. And the ability to get grounded in reflecting of something bigger than ourselves, right? These trees are bigger than us. And when we have that sense of expansion beyond what I call the small self, right? Who am I? What am I? We then feel connected to a deeper source. And with the meditation program that we have here, that we teach over a period of 4 sessions over 4 days, we're helping everybody get that nervous system from that fight or flight response, which is that deep programming, to the relaxation state. And when that happens slowly over time, we then have an imprint, a new imprint into our nervous system that it's okay not to be in a fight or flight response. And modern day society and life and all those prior imprints are having everyone's adrenals up here. We're used to this heightened, and yet when it's not happening, we'll either create drama or we'll feel a hole, right? And that hole has to be filled. And primarily, with some greater purpose, right? And when we have the ability to switch out of that without the physiology, the consciousness needing to create it over and over again, we then have the ability to take that moment to pause, to be able to listen to that voice that you had that was clearly screaming at you all those years of who you are, and the freedom, even with a young lady such as yourself in a Western country, right? Still feeling this pressure of needing to be validated. And if we had our own inner voices listened to, and one of the great things with the meditation teaching is that children have a fun practice that they get to do, and they learn to go inwards. They don't close their eyes. And if you want to find more about it, you can. There's a free ebook called Vedic Meditation Stories. It's available free if you have Amazon Unlimited Prime. You can get it on the Kindle. You don't need the device. You just download it. So all the information is down there. And so before we wrap it up, apart from everybody, please like and subscribe and help us out. Anything that goes to the nonprofit, if you're wanting to participate, all the details are down there. What would you say to your younger self now, your 14-year-old self now, with the wisdom that you have that might change the trajectory?
Not every, well, be yourself. Well, excuse me. Be confident, be kind. No, sorry. Can I think about this? It's so embarrassing. What I would tell myself, it gets better. It gets better. You get better. Like, it's what Joan Rivers said. It's a quote from her, but you don't need everybody to like you. Everybody's kind of dealing with their own internal struggle. And you just be you. You keep focusing on being yourself and kind, and keep looking to the future because it gets so much better.
So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you've all enjoyed this beautiful chat with Sarah. And please put down in the comments if you want to have her back so she can unpack a little bit more of her wonderful adventure. And thank you again for supporting Aware Meditation Inc. And we'll see you soon on the next Cosmic Chat.